kind of job. Patel has worked as a prosecutor. He served in Trump's first administration. He is someone who says that he is loyal not necessarily to the country, the Constitution, certainly not to the current FBI, which he calls the deep state or worse, but is loyal to Donald Trump and whatever he says Trump's MAGA movement stands for. He has also taken positions in his adult public life that are certainly at odds with anything we've ever seen from any FBI director in either party's administrations. For example, selling things that would sound like a scam or a type of fraud, for example, anti-vaccine pills that would reverse the effects of the COVID vaccine. That's not a medical thing. It's more of a misleading sort of money-making scheme. And Patel is someone who has claimed that if he got this kind of power in the new Trump administration, that he would seek retribution. Now, as I've told you before, we follow these things carefully, and it is perfectly fine for a new administration to want to change policies at DOJ or FBI and to be critical of past, even alleged abuses of power. But what he has done is basically talk about the current nonpartisan career bureau people at the FBI and other parts of the government and said that they themselves are, and he says this without evidence, this is a kind of a pre-fact check of what you're about to see, he says they're traitors, that they are basically borderline treasonous, even though he's never had any evidence or names to back that up. So this is sort of MAGA, neo-McCarthyism now being teed up to run one of the most powerful positions in the government. Here's one thing that he said on that score.
What you have is a buildup of so many actions by the deep state that it becomes borderline treasonous.
Borderline treasonous. He's talking, of course, about the police. Remember, the Federal Bureau of Investigation are the federal arm of law enforcement, just as the state and city arm are police. The federal arms are the Bureau. So we call them federal agents, but he's just attacking police. And this is something we've seen before. There are many people around Trump, and sometimes Trump himself, who are against law enforcement. They're against police. They're against the blue, as it's sometimes called, whether the blue is reporting into the local city department, that's police department, or the blue is reporting in federally, which is FBI agents. And if that sounds a little off or different from the branding we've heard over the years, there are two reasons for that. One, decades back, the Republican Party was more of a, quote, law and order party, and it definitely generally sided with law enforcement. That's no longer true. And then second is the reason you probably already know, because Donald Trump and many of his aides have been caught in so many situations that have led to investigations, prosecutions, sometimes convictions. They have turned on the people doing that work. They have turned on the feds, the FBI. And so they have a very vested reason in trying to delegitimize anything that happens by the FBI because they've been on the other side of it. Then there are claims by Trump, which he ran on, and now Patel, which you're going to see because he's being tapped for this, among other reasons, that they would abuse federal powers and go after the various forces in American life that they see as somehow holding them accountable. That could be the peaceful political opposition, targeting Democrats in this case, or others who've been critical of Trump. They've talked about going after Liz Cheney. She's a lifelong Republican. And they've also talked about going after the journalists who report on them, the free press.
We will go out and find the conspirators, not just in government, but in the media. Yes, we're going to come after the people in the media who lied about American citizens. We're going to come after you. Whether it's criminally or civilly, we'll figure that out.
Now, there are a lot of people concerned about Patel who go well beyond, say, what you might call the 48% of the country that voted against Donald Trump, or his assorted critics and people who might be somehow politically opponents of Trump and MAGA. There are people saying that this is a QAnon conspiracist. Someone who served in Donald Trump's first term in national security has said quite clearly Patel is totally unqualified for the position, the dictionary definition of a sycophant, and that Trump's ultimate statement here, made with the Patel pick coming after Gates, is the second term will be driven by retribution. Wall Street Journal, which is the sister publication of Fox News, has noted Patel has a credential problem and has never worked as an FBI agent, which would certainly be unusual for rising to director. His supporters, I should note, say that he has some law enforcement background. Bush White House veteran David Frum, who is a Trump critic and who has been on this and other programs, writes in The Atlantic that this is actually worse than Watergate. It threatens to turn the FBI into an instrument of personal presidential power and thus payback. Now, Donald Trump has a cabinet full of nominees, and they are just nominees. They have to get through the Senate, but the slated cabinet plan are these nominees who clearly are being prized for something other than credentials. It's what in MAGA they call loyalty, what in traditional nonpartisan work they would call a potentially disqualifying partisanship. And the larger question here, after the big clash and loss for Donald Trump with Matt Gaetz, is what does it tell you that if he loses on one side of the retribution agenda, he quickly rushes to someone who is as controversial or worse on the same problems? Many people have pointed out that while in traditional presidencies, a cabinet loss, especially an early big one like AG, would lead the president, or in this case, president-elect, to take a step back, to compromise, to recalibrate. Well, this ain't no normal term we're heading into, and this ain't no normal president-elect, and he is not taking a step back whatsoever at the widespread rejection of his very partisan AG pick. The first one, Matt Gaetz. With Patel, he is doubling down. He is vowing to fire the current FBI director, whom he selected in the first term, which itself is unusual, and put in someone who's more than a loyalist, someone who has vowed in public to do things that could actually get you charged by the FBI and the DOJ in a normal situation, abusing power, abusing government resources, and going after free speech. We're joined by a former civil prosecutor in the Southern District, Maya Wiley, and civil rights expert. Maya, your thoughts on this pick, and starting with substance, regardless of all the noise out there, is this person at all qualified for this job?
Well, thank you, Ari. And let me just start with, Kash Patel is not qualified for this job. And I want to make something very clear. It's not because Kash Patel was a public defense attorney at one time. You don't have to only be a prosecutor, I think, to head the FBI. But at the same time, he's never had a position of leadership in a significant office before that I can tell. I mean, and think about this. The FBI has 35,000 staff members. It is massive. It has billions of dollars in budget and covers a litany of serious crimes, including counterintelligence here in the United States, like when Russia comes to interfere in our elections. And I say that because we have heard so much from Donald Trump about who he doesn't consider qualified, no matter what a long list of experience they have on their resume. Christopher Wray, for example, who we appointed, had been in several offices across up and down the chain in the Department of Justice, tons of experience within the agency, including at very high levels of the agency. So clearly was ready to handle something the size of the FBI. That is very different in terms of Kash Patel's resume. But as you point out, Ari, it isn't just about the job experience on paper. It's about understanding what the job is. And the job of the Federal Bureau of Investigation is to investigate crimes, not to serve as someone that Kash Patel himself has referred to in a children's book as the king. That flies in the face of what we need the FBI to be, which is an independent investigator that takes seriously both the Constitution and the rule of law.
Yeah, and I think that this pick reminds people that second-term Trump is not a return to the first term. It's not more of the same. One of those cliches that sounds like criticism. It is something much more extreme based on what they couldn't actually get done last time. So Bill Barr is seen as a very Trump-friendly figure in law enforcement. He was basically helping Trump with just about everything he wanted up until the end, up until there was an actual effort to steal the election and hold a coup. This is what Barr wrote about in his book, again, reflecting on Patel. The Patel name may be new to the nation, but not to people in Trump's first term. He said the idea of promoting Patel to Barr was something he would only do over his dead body, that there was a shocking detachment from reality. And David Frum, who I quote in the lead, I also want to read, talked about reminding everyone, again, people are busy living their lives. Maybe people are doing their holiday shopping, Maya. I don't expect everyone to memorize all the different ways that there are different jobs. But because of Watergate and other problems, the FBI director is the only top law enforcement position that runs beyond a single term. It's 10 years. It can be changed. I mean, you can remove it. Comey famously was fired by Trump. But Frum writes that much of the reporting on Trump's announcement reveals a society already bending to Trump's will, something that was regarded as outrageously unacceptable in 2017, treating an FBI director as just, quote, another Trump aide, by which he means, a partisan political type, has been semi-normalized even before President-elect Trump takes office. And Frum, in that rather excellent piece, which I recommend, Maya, reminds everyone, this public announcement that he's going to fire the current FBI director, who he picked, for no reason other than the stated public retribution plans, is itself a scandal even before you get to the pick.
I totally agree. And I just want to go back to that clip you played of Kash Patel when he was talking about going after even journalists, something that, sounds very much back in the time of J. Edgar Hoover, who simply abused his power. We've come a long way since that. This takes us far backward. But it's when you look at him in that clip, he's actually reading, meaning he thought enough about what he was saying to commit it to writing and to read it from what appears to be some form of teleprompter. Or did someone give it to him to read? Whatever it is, it appears to be an audition. And the audition is for the job that Donald Trump, now very emboldened, elections have consequences, but emboldened to feel like as the person, as the candidate who promised retribution, who promised to use the Department of Justice not as a sword to protect, but as a sword to cut down his own enemies and opponents, that Kash Patel understood the assignment, auditioned for the job, both between his children's book and that kind of language and wording that flies in the face of the job itself, and therefore has gotten the job, at least in terms of the nomination from Donald Trump. And the question is, will the Senate do its job? Because he is simply not qualified for the one he has been nominated for.
Maya Wiley, thank you for perspective with a background in law enforcement on that. I want to tell folks what's coming up by the end of the hour. We have new highlights airing for the first time from our sit-down with Julia Louis-Dreyfus, and a Trump impeachment witness will be speaking out. We're going to get into that. But we also want to break down President Biden's big newsworthy announcement this weekend, the pardon of his son. A lot of legal history and a lot of context there. Interesting and important stuff. I'm going to have my report on that for you when we're back in 90 seconds.
Asthma. Does it have you missing out on what you love, with who you love? Get back to better breathing with Fasenra, an add-on treatment for eosinophilic asthma taken once every 8 weeks. Fasenra is not for sudden breathing problems. Serious allergic reactions may occur. Get help for swelling of your face, mouth, tongue, or trouble breathing. Don't stop your asthma treatments without talking with your doctor. Tell your doctor if your asthma worsens or you have a parasitic infection. Headache and sore throat may occur. Ask your doctor if Fasenra is right for you.
Inez, let me ask you. You're using Head and Shoulders, right?
Only when I see flakes. Then I switch back to my regular shampoo.
You should use it every wash. Otherwise, the flakes will come back.
He's right,
Is that Tiny Troy?
The ingredients in Head & Shoulders keep the microbes that cause flakes that big.
Microbes, really?
They're always on your scalp. But good news, there's no itchiness, dryness, or flakes down here.
I love Tiny Troy and his tiny girl.
Sunday, he pardoned his son for the conviction and for any basically and all offenses over a decade. That spares Hunter Biden any time in prison, insulates him from further actions by this incoming Trump administration. President stating that people are almost never brought to trial on felony charges solely for filling out a gun form, referencing the Hunter offense, saying those who were later paying their taxes because of a serious addiction but paid them back are typically given non-criminal resolutions. That's kind of legal jargon for saying other people wouldn't get prison in the first place on these charges. The president also stated that Hunter was singled out basically for politics because he's the president's son, and that's wrong. Enough is enough, says the president. The decision, however, flatly breaks Joe Biden's own vow and comes amidst scrutiny on how justice works in this country. Now, initial reaction over the weekend here, this broke Sunday, ranged from criticizing the reversal, a Democrat calling it a bad precedent that will sadly tarnish Biden's reputation, while other reporting noted the odd legal path that led to Hunter Biden's conviction.
There's certainly a personal element to this in the president choosing to pardon his son.
I don't think Hunter Biden would have been prosecuted under most circumstances.
Hunter Biden was prosecuted for a crime that kind of a normal person who had committed the same crime would almost certainly not be prosecuted for.
On paper, there is no justification for pardoning the guy.
This is a historic act of political nepotism. This pardon will tarnish Joe Biden's legacy.
The pardon breaks a vow. It muddies the very principles that Biden and his party argued were so fundamental in the contrast to Trump in this year's election. There is evidence that Hunter Biden's treatment was unfair and too harsh. But that applies to many other cases which are not getting lenience because they don't have the political, family, or elite connections. And that is a deeper problem which matters to many more people, citizens, voters. If being singled out unfairly is grounds now for a pardon, well, thousands of lower income and minority Americans could use exactly that lenience and treatment. Many have paid harsher penalties, served more time than Hunter Biden ever did, and now he's spared. If prison seems harsh for addiction issues, a point that's come up, it's worth noting about 1 in 5 of the national prison population are serving for drug offenses. Biden has issued about 25 pardons in all. This is not an administration that has used the logic that we just heard on behalf of his son applied to many other people, some of them possibly deserving. Obama, famously, over 2 terms, did more pardons, sometimes was criticized for them. He had bigger criticisms of race in our justice system and did over 200 pardons. Now, there are days left. This presidency's number could go up. I will say Democrats have led more on recent justice reform efforts than Republicans, but both parties, as we've reported, have long pushed harsh and punitive policies for decades. Both have had presidents using the pardon power now for personal reasons. These are just facts. Now, the facts don't make for a total political equivalence. We could show you the recent math. This new family pardon by President Biden is basically his first and main use of what you could call a self-interested pardon. For Donald Trump, as you see, there were a slew of aides who he helped and pardoned, and they often kept his secrets, which makes those self-interested pardons also helping Trump evade a reckoning. So there's the math. You can see the difference in the numbers. But the principle here is still a problem, especially in a justice system that we've documented, and so many have shown, runs differently for the rich and connected than for everyone else. There are independent voices who've been critical of Trump who are also holding Biden to account on this big story today. Veteran political journalist Jonathan Chait, I'll remind you, has rebuked Trump as a total threat to democracy, a crook, and denounced his anti-Semitic rants against Governor Shapiro, to name just a few pieces he's written. Today, he's writing that Biden's hypocrisy is unpardonable because he chose to prioritize his own feelings over the defense of his country. Joining me now is The Atlantic's Jonathan Chait. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Explain your thoughts, what you wrote about.
Yeah, I thought you put it pretty well. One point that I would add is that there was a lot of controversy over Hunter Biden's activities that were legal but deeply unethical in previous years, where he was selling the perception of access to his father. And the defense of what Hunter Biden was doing was basically that there was no crime in going to business people in Ukraine and China and other countries and letting them think that if they paid Hunter Biden, he could put in a word with his father and get favorable policy as a result. Maybe that should have been a crime, but it wasn't a crime. So the standard that Hunter Biden and his defenders wanted to be held to was pure legality. So here there's a case where, as some of the as voices you quoted suggested, maybe other people who had committed these crimes wouldn't have been charged by the letter of the law. But by the letter of the law, what he did is a crime. So it seems like he wants to be judged by the pure legality standard when he's doing something unethical, but he wants to be charged by a kind of higher morality standard when he's violating the law in a less harmful way. So, I think that's part of the context of his father being so willing to indulge Hunter Biden's really unethical business activities and then being willing to break his promise to pardon him at the end of his presidency.
Right, and you're drawing everyone's attention to how the legal system works. It's technical on the front end, but very fuzzy at the end if you know the right people. So on the front end, they have what are called mitigating and aggravating factors. A prosecutor may look and a judge may ultimately sentence based on those extra factors. And if it works fairly, the factors drive it, not the who. I just discussed why that sometimes doesn't happen. At the end, it's totally fuzzy, right? You just say, the president has this power, and how is it extended? But I think we, as a society, should be most skeptical of the use of that power and leniency when it is self-interested rather than otherwise offered for society. People can still debate. You say someone was convicted of something serious, and a president comes in and gives leniency, the victims' families and other people, the prosecutors who worked on it certainly, may disagree. But if it's done, Jonathan, for at least a transparently, publicly accountable reason and not self-dealing, that would seem to be better than, and we'll put the chart back up, what Biden has now done once, what Trump has done many more times in the past. And we'll see what pardons he does. He's talked about pardoning Jan 6 traitors in the future. But your thoughts about that distinction and why that would seem to concern you in your piece?
Well, look, I think it is important to note that what he's done is not as corrupt as what Trump has done, both numerically, and I also think the motive is a little bit different, right? He's obviously just purely looking out for his son as a father, as opposed to pardoning people who are implicated in his own schemes and could well have flipped on him. So that's really in a totally different category. But moral category, ethical category in terms of the abuse of the pardon system. But that's the decision matrix you would look at to decide which of these candidates should I vote for. But being better than Donald Trump may be enough for people to vote for you, but that's not a high enough standard to hold yourself to as president, right? We don't just say as long as you're less corrupt than Donald Trump, we have no problems with it.
Jonathan, I don't want to make light of it's a serious set of issues, but it almost sounds like you're reminding everyone saying I'm not Watergate or I'm not the first term Trump crime spree isn't the greatest starting point.
That's exactly right. So I think sometimes Biden defenders want to go straight to Donald Trump to justify his actions because that's the easiest standard in the world to clear, but it's just not a high enough standard for the president of the United States.
Yeah. Final larger question, Jonathan. Where do you think this sort of satchel of issues at the end for Biden fits into the Democratic soul searching we hear so much about? Because on the one hand, it could have been an inflation election, and you can overlearn everything. And I know you've written about this. But on the other hand, you look at this story we're talking about today, you look at some other mistakes, and without moral equivalency, right? As journalists, we're not supposed to even it up. We're just following the facts. But some of this might fit into the Democrats' gap between at least a moral and ethical high ground they said they had, and maybe one they didn't at least convince enough people of in the election.
I think the most direct line you want to draw is Joe Biden's ability to distinguish his own personal interests from those of the country and the party, especially when the opposition is so ghastly. Joe Biden was clearly never really willing to take a cold, hard look at his own ability to win the election when he made the decision. He just wanted to win for his own reasons of his own pride, and he wasn't really willing to say, am I the best candidate the Democratic Party can run in 2024? Because the answer was obviously no. So here again, I think he's making a pardon decision that's going to make it harder for Democrats to criticize Trump's abuses. But it's better for Joe Biden. And so, he's putting himself ahead of his country.
Plainly put. Jonathan, appreciate you joining us. Hope you had a good holiday.
Thank you. Go Blue.
Hey, go Blue. Thank you, Jonathan. Jonathan Chait, a fellow University of Michigan alum. We have a lot more coming up. I mentioned Julia Louis-Dreyfus by the end of the hour, but not only that, we're going to get into Ukraine and the coming changes there. Congressman Steve Israel, a House Democratic veteran, and other guests coming up.
No peeking. Okay. Open.
Over 600,000 USPS employees working in sync to ensure everything sent on its holiday ride ends with a moment of joy. The United States Postal Service.
I forgot to wash my work shirt.
Just wear it again. I added Unstoppables, now with odor blocker, and it keeps our clothes fresh all day.
Ooh, I'm gonna be feeling it at work today.
She smells so good, I'm actually paying attention. Smell unstoppable. Disability is not a dirty word.
It takes a lot to be able to get to the pride part of disability because we live in an ableist society.
There are millions of people like me. They are overlooked and underestimated.
I have a mind, I have a heart, I have a passion.
It's who I am, whether I'm sitting or standing.
If I didn't have the disability, I wouldn't be the person that I am today.
Say disability.
With pride.
I've been warned by celebrities, athletes, and world leaders. But I've always felt most comfortable up here with the folks that made me who I am. I'm right at home, out here on the land. And I'm in my lane on the shoulder of the interstate. Because this is where I come from. I've been showing up here for nearly 200 years, and I can't wait to see what's next.
Hats off to the future.
Nothing runs like a deer.
When I was diagnosed with HIV, I didn't know who I would be.
But here I am, being me.
Keep being you and ask your healthcare provider about the #1 prescribed HIV treatment, Biktarvy.
Biktarvy is a complete one-pill, once-a-day treatment used for HIV in many people, whether you're 18 or 80. With one small pill, Biktarvy fights HIV to help you get to undetectable and stay there, whether you're just starting or replacing your current treatment. Research shows that taking HIV treatment as prescribed and getting to and staying undetectable prevents transmitting HIV through sex. Serious side effects can occur, including kidney problems and kidney failure. Rare, life-threatening side effects include a buildup of lactic acid and liver problems. Don't take Biktarvy if you take dofetilide or rifampin. Tell your healthcare provider about all the medicines and supplements you take if you are pregnant or breastfeeding or have kidney or liver problems. If you have hepatitis B, don't stop taking Biktarvy without talking to your healthcare provider. Common side effects were diarrhea, nausea, and headache.
No matter where life takes you, Biktarvy can go with you. Talk to your healthcare provider today.
The online store that was just breached has my payment info.
During the holidays, think of all the places that can expose your info. LifeLock monitors millions of data points for identity theft. If there's a problem, we fix it, guaranteed.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work, try to see a doctor this week, or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
The Black Friday sale is on with the lowest price of the year. Order online in minutes and your kit that treats common and life-saving medicines is rushed to your door. Don't miss Black Friday savings. Visit urgentcarekit.com/Black Friday. That's urgentcarekit.com/Black Friday.
We're living through a big transition, the changing of the guard in Washington. For all of the efforts to keep track of what Donald Trump is doing, and his early picks, as we've been covering, are quite extreme in certain agencies, there's a broader set of transitions that are going to be happening. A new Congress sworn in early January, and then, of course, the president on January 20th. We want to look ahead with veterans of government from multiple branches. We're joined now by Ambassador Gordon Sondland. He served as ambassador to the EU in Trump's first term, and Democratic Congressman from New York, Steve Israel, who served in the House and has a little political experience running the Democrats' congressional campaign arm. First of all, welcome to both of you. Happy holidays. Nice to see you.
Thank you, Ari. I'm so proud of you, Ari. You're not equivocating on the Biden pardon. That's great.
Hey, well, I appreciate you. You know, maybe you'll give us a review of all the segments, Ambassador. I'm going to go into the Ukraine issue first, which is something that I know you both care about. I don't know if we have this yet. Yeah, let me show this. Biden administration has been bolstering military aid there. Of course, they know that their time is running out. J.D. Vance and Elon Musk sound skeptical, to name a few Trump allies, although, of course, the president ultimately will make the decisions in January. President Zelensky in Ukraine, though, is saying that he wants to work with the incoming presidency of Donald Trump, basically sounding a kind of a pragmatic note. Ambassador Sondland, of course, working with the EU, was at the center of many of these intrigue and characters last time around. He was in the House impeachment inquiry where he testified about then-President Trump's effort to try to shake down Zelensky. He said this.
I know that members of this committee frequently frame these complicated issues in the form of a simple question. Was there a quid pro quo? As I testified previously, with regard to the requested White House call and the White House meeting, the answer is yes.
Ambassador Sondland there. Again, I'm reminding people, because not everyone follows this as closely as the congressman I might, but you had that role. You ultimately appeared on this program, among other places, and said you supported Donald Trump's reelection. But now we're back to going into governing. Your view of what the administration will and perhaps should do on this Ukraine war issue, and as someone who's dealt with some of the principles, what do you hear in Zelensky very publicly saying, hey, he still needs the U.S. no matter who's in charge, but he wants to be pragmatic?
Well, he does need the U.S., and he's very pragmatic. And that's why I think you've seen a very subtle shift publicly. I think at the end of the day, though, Putin cannot get away with what he is ostensibly gotten away with so far. So he may wind up temporarily with some Ukrainian territory, but the price he's going to pay is going to be some type of NATO security guarantee. It might not be full NATO membership, but it'll be equivalent to almost an indemnification on the part of NATO. And that is something that will be very, very, very costly for Putin in the long run. Because whatever territory that Zelensky leaves behind, he can get back diplomatically if the territory that he is left with is guaranteed directly or indirectly by NATO.
Congressman, what do you think? And what do you think of President like Trump, who has made the argument, which frankly has found support in the country, that whatever happens over there, the U.S. can't be just spending endlessly?
Well, it's a good question, Ari, and I'm pleased to be on with the ambassador. Listen, you know, I spent most of my 16 years in Congress on the Armed Services Committee, the Appropriations Defense Subcommittee, traveled to Afghanistan, Iraq, other dangerous areas of the world to visit our troops 20 times. And I always learned this lesson. It is a fundamental tenet of American foreign policy and national security to support our allies, to support democratic values, not just for the values of democracy, but because it makes us safer. It keeps us safer to stand by our allies. You talked about President Trump invoking the cost of Ukraine. Look, I would get a fundamental reassessment of our policies with Ukraine if we were spending trillions and trillions of dollars there, as we did in Iraq and Afghanistan. I might understand it if we were sending our troops on their third or fourth or fifth deployments to Ukraine. We're not. I would get it if we were suffering casualties in Ukraine. We're not. None of those things apply to Ukraine. It's a much more fundamental issue, and that is, will we stand by a democratic ally and stand with neighboring allies in the face of hostility and aggression by Putin, or will we concede to Putin's worst impulses and aggressions and therefore empower him to go even further? I hope the ambassador is right. I hope that we will get a tempered strategy here. I think it's going to depend on what day Donald Trump decides to make that decision and what kind of mood he's in.
I have other stuff, but Ambassador, I'll let you respond if you want.
Well, I can hopefully make the congressman's evening more pleasant. I don't believe for a second that Donald Trump is going to sell out Ukraine. Not for a minute. And certainly not to benefit Vladimir Putin. I think what Donald Trump wants to do is to stop the shooting, first of all, and second of all, make it expensive for Putin to have done what he has done. And if Putin walks away with a little bit of territory, but the remainder of Ukraine is indemnified by NATO, that crushes all of Putin's ambitions cold. So that might be a very small price to pay on the part of Zelensky, and I think Zelensky is open to that. That's what I'm hearing behind the scenes.
Right, and very interesting to get your thought there. You mentioned whether Trump's going to sell out Ukraine. I mean, it's something he literally threatened to do before. Whether the threats go somewhere, right, we're all going to be tracking.
He also said people are eating dogs and cats, and they're not.
Right. So So you're using his falsehoods to say, okay.
They're not falsehoods. They're Trump hyperbole. It's the show. I love the show. It's a great show.
You're free to love the show on the international stage, right? The word of the United States and what we're going to do and not do also matters. So consistency versus lies matter. But I want to get you, Ambassador, I want to hit more than one topic while I have the benefit of you as a guest, both of you. Over the weekend, Trump also making threats about not small, but huge tariffs, 100% tariffs. Talk about Russia. We just mentioned India, China. He had earlier talked about 25% tariffs on goods from our neighboring countries of Mexico and Canada. There are many debates across economics about this. But Ambassador, first, again, not only I didn't know you were going to say what you just said, but given what you said about, oh, how seriously do you take him? Do you view this, and should the world markets view this, as a literal plan or a negotiating tactic where let's all calm down and see where it lands?
Oh, I think he's very willing to impose the tariffs, but I think the tariffs are so destructive, not just to us, but to the recipient of the tariff, if you will, that it garners immediate attention. There is nothing like the threat of a tariff to get a world leader to get on a plane and come to Mar-a-Lago or wherever and sit down and talk turkey. When these world leaders have been used under multiple administrations, Democrat and Republican, it's not a partisan thing, to shining on our leaders and talking in diplomatic speak. And Trump has cut that off at the knees, and it's extremely effective.
Congressman Israel, the last thing I want to show you, and we'll see if the ambassador wants to jump in on this, but take a look at the margin here that Donald Trump won by. It's almost like a reboot of 16 where he's benefited from a sort of shock or surprise value. He had a comeback. I've reported on that. He won fair and square. That's our system. But how much should Democrats be learning and pivoting, Congressman Israel? And how much should they also look at the fact that whatever you call this margin, it's a lot slimmer than other recent ones, and certainly than the big mandates of the Reagan era?
Well, look, we are a 50-50 country. More precisely, we're a 45-45 country, and the rest are undecided. But here's the column on that graph that I'm really going to be fascinated to watch, and that is the upcoming midterm elections, which have started already. The day after the presidential election, candidates started to be recruited. Democrats began working on changing their policies, revising, reforming, rehabilitating their policies. And so we're seeing a midterm election. Now, Ira, you've studied this as I have. Every president in history, with the exception of 4, have been pretty clobbered in midterm elections. It's a negative partisan environment. And so no matter what happens, particularly if there are tariffs that raise people's prices, the Republicans are looking at a tough midterm election in 2026. There are moderate senators who are going to have a challenge. There are a bunch of House Republicans in blue states who are going to have a challenge. As bad as it is for Democrats now, I think that they do have a very favorable wind at their backs going into the next cycle.
Well, President
Trump, on time, but Ambassador,
President Trump has a big stopwatch on his desk, and he knows he has barely 2 years to effectuate the change that he was elected to effectuate. That's why he's been so quick to nominate his cabinet and key positions. And this time, he's not going to make the same mistakes he made in 16. He's going to hit the ground running, and he's going to try to wrap this up, if you will, in terms of the change he wants to impose on our government in 18 months. And it's going to be a daunting task, but I think he can do it.
Interesting. Ambassador Sondland, Congressman Israel, you guys are a good combo. We got the executive, the legislature. I'd love to have you both back, have you back together.
Are you the judicial?
You know, I never clerked, so technically not. But I've been in and out of courtrooms. Thanks to both of you. We're going to fit in a break. When we come back from Seinfeld to Veep, we have new remarks from Julia Louis-Dreyfus.
Dry eyes still feel gritty, rough, or tired? With MyBo, eyes can feel MyBo is the only prescription dry eye drop that forms a protective layer for the #1 cause of dry eye, too much tear evaporation. For relief, that's MyBo. Remove contact lenses before using MyBo. Wait at least 30 minutes before putting them back in. Eye redness and blurred vision may occur. Ask your eye doctor about prescription MyBo.
At Bombas, we make the most comfortable socks in the history of feet. So comfortable, you'll wish you had more. Visit bombas.com and shop our big holiday sale.
Can Neuriva support your brain health?
Mary, Janet, hey.
Eddie, no, Fraser, Frank. Frank?
Fred, how are you? Fred.
Support up to 7 brain health indicators, including memory. When you need to remember Neuriva.
Still have moderate to severe ulcerative colitis or Crohn's disease symptoms after taking a medication like Humira or Remicade? Put them in check with Rinvoq, a once-daily pill.
When symptoms try to take control, I got rapid relief with Rinvoq. Check.
When flares try to slow me down, I got lasting remission with Rinvoq. Check. And many were in remission, even at nearly 2 years.
And Rinvoq helped visibly reduce damage of the intestinal lining. Check.
Rapid symptom relief, lasting remission.
And visibly reduced damage. Check.
Rinvoq can lower ability to fight infections. Before treatment, test for TB and do blood work. Serious infections, blood clots, some fatal. Cancers including lymphoma and skin, serious allergic reactions, GI tears, death, heart attack, and stroke occurred. CV event risk increases in age 50 plus with a heart disease risk factor. Tell your doctor if you've had these events: infection, Hep B or C, smoked, are pregnant or planning. Don't take if allergic or have an infection.
Put UC and Crohn's in check and keep them there with Rinvoq.
Ask your gastroenterologist about Rinvoq.
Oh, what a good time we will have. You can make it happen again.
Voltaren for long-lasting arthritis pain relief.
Listen, I'm shopping for insurance.
Whoa. The unexpected can happen to any of us. That's why SelectQuote makes it easy to get the life insurance coverage you need to protect your family for less than $1 a day.
SelectQuote found me a $500,000 policy for only $16 a month.
We could help you save more than 50% on life insurance.
Visit SelectQuote.com. We shop, you save.
Here on the internet, you can pretend to be anything.
Like a medical professional. Or a skilled electrician.
Don't trust the unfiltered internet. Angie has 30 years of experience finding the best pros.
Angie, job's done well.
Are you tired of that old worn-out bath or shower? Now you can have a new one installed in just one day with a new limited-time offer from Jacuzzi Bath Remodel. We're waiving all installation costs with no interest and no payments for up to 1 year. Jacuzzi has been making water feel great for over 70 years. And now you can get a gorgeous custom bath remodel at a price you can afford with no stress and no mess.
I've been trying to get him to remodel that bath for years. I called and they did in just one day.
And at a price we could afford.
Every time I stepped over my old tub, I worried I might fall. I don't have those fears anymore.
With Jacuzzi, you can get a safer, easy entry shower to keep you feeling comfortable and independent at home. Your new Jacuzzi bath or shower is waiting. Now is the best time to call.
We're waiving all installation costs with no interest and no payments for up to 1 year. There are only weeks remaining during our limited time offer. Go to jacuzzibathremodel.com or call 800-991-9523.
Say goodbye to scooping this holiday season with Litter Robot, the highest-rated self-cleaning litter box that eliminates the chore of scooping while drastically reducing litter mess and odors, even in a multi-cat household. After your cat exits, Litter Robot automatically cycles, dropping the dirty clumps into the tightly sealed drawer below so your cat always has a fresh bed of litter. Say goodbye to your traditional litter box this holiday season and hello to Litter Robot. For a limited time, save up to $100 on Litter Robot bundles, our best deal of the season.
Julia Louis-Dreyfus is a legend that people know from so many of her roles, from Seinfeld to the more political Veep. She just joined us recently and talked about perseverance in her career. Here's what she told me. This is airing now for the first time. We have something fun. We made it for you. Let's take a look at our favorite moments.
What the hell am I?
You're bald!
What about a prison specifically interests you?
Jail?
For sure.
It blesseth him that gives and him that takes.
Can I tell you something,
Sure.
my friend?
Tell me.
When you make appointments, keep it.
George Costanza
Yeah?
is getting married!
You know what? Why don't you put on your running shoes and get to the f***ing point, Jonah?
So, the only question is, go ahead. You have anything to say?
No, I don't have anything to say.
No.
I had no idea that we were going to be revisiting all these shows and movies.
What,
I'm delighted.
Yeah, we're delighted. We sometimes ask people, and I finally, this is your debut, we ask people who've had interesting lives, what do you take from it that you would impart either to your younger self or a young person today who wants to make art that matters or be heard?
I would say connect. I would say connect with people. I would say find your community. And sometimes that's hard, particularly nowadays, because we're all on our, the internet and social media and all of that. But I would say put down your phone, find your people, and find a way to make art and joy with them. And I know that sounds almost Pollyanna-ish, but if you think about it, it kind of makes sense. And actually, speaking of phones and so on, you can make movies and you can make TV shows on your phone right now. So for those of people who are feeling artistic and want to create their own, I mean, it's already being done. I don't know even why I'm saying this. People are doing it anyway. But I think it's a great opportunity that I didn't have, years ago when I was first starting out, just to, take my phone and make something with it. It's quite amazing. So I don't know, but I think connecting with others and looking for fun and joy is the way to do it. I'm all for it.
Fun and joy, connect and make something. Nice advice there. We hadn't aired that part of the interview yet, so I wanted to share that from Julie. You can actually see the full interview on our YouTube page, msnbc.com/ARI directs you there, and we will be right back.
Mopping is hard work. Then I tried the Swiffer Power Mop. It has a built-in solution that breaks down dirt on contact. Plus, its 360-degree swivel head cleans up along baseboards and even behind the toilet. Bye-bye, bucket. With the Swiffer Power Mop.
Here on the internet, you can pretend to be anything.
Like an elderly man's bank.
Or an expert plumber.
Don't trust the unfiltered internet. Angie has 30 years of experience finding the best pros.
Angie, job's done well.
Hi, my name is Damian Clark. If you have both Medicare and Medicaid, I have some really encouraging news that you'll definitely want to hear. Depending on the plans available in your area, you may be eligible to get extra benefits with the Humana Medicare Advantage Dual Eligible Special Needs Plan. Most plans include the Humana Healthy Options Allowance, a monthly allowance to help pay for eligible groceries, utilities, rent, and over-the-counter items. The Healthy Options Allowance is loaded onto a prepaid card each month, and whatever you don't spend carries over from each month. Plus, your doctor, hospital, and pharmacy may already be part of our large Humana networks. So call the number on your screen now and ask about a Humana Medicare Advantage Dual Eligible Special Needs Plan. And remember, annual enrollment ends on December 7th. Humana, a more human way to healthcare.
Nothing makes a gathering great like Eggland's best eggs. They're just so delicious. With better nutrition, too. For us, it's eggs any style, as long as they're the best. Eggland's best.
I don't want to wait or have surgery for my Dupuytren's contraction. I want a non-surgical treatment.
And if non-surgical treatment isn't offered?
I'll get a second opinion.
Take charge of your treatment. If you can't lay your hand flat, visit findahandspecialist.com to get started.
The UPS Store wants to make this the best holiday season ever. No matter how you celebrate. We're the pack it, ship it, guarantee it store. The extra pair of hands store. The it has to get there in one piece store. We're the one stop, right around the corner, the unstoppable, every way you holiday store. Visit the upsstore.com/packing and get 20% off packing today.
Shop Etsy's Cyber Spectacular until December 3rd for up to 60% off gifts crafted by small businesses. Get fetching finds for friends with fur friends and everyone else on your list. For up to 60% off gifts that say,
They can help you enroll in the plan that fits you best. Take control of your coverage choices by calling Plan Enroll today.
Artificial intelligence is rapidly evolving, far faster than it can be regulated, and that has left a kind of a gap where the Hollywood strikes and labor groups sometimes are trying to make up for what the artificial intelligence companies are allegedly getting away with in a time where there's few laws, and that applies both in the United States and abroad. Take our neighbors to the north in Canada, where some news outlets are now taking one of the biggest AI companies, OpenAI and ChatGPT, to court. They're basically alleging that these tools, which are powerful and can be beneficial, but they allege that it's based on stealing, on copyright infringement, on taking the text and the words and the work of their laborers, in this case, writers and editors and all the people who create newspapers and other media products. They say their journalism was basically stolen for the so-called training of these artificial intelligence systems. And the companies want billions of dollars in damages, over $14,000 per article, which they say was basically stolen, illegally scraped, quote, and used to train ChatGPT, which is OpenAI's system. This follows other lawsuits in the United States, including big papers that we rely on right here for articles, and we interview their journalists, right? News outlets like the New York Times, many authors, the photo library that protects a lot of photographers' original work, Getty, have made similar allegations and tried to resolve them, sometimes through suits, basically lawsuits and cases, sometimes through negotiation. OpenAI denies these claims, both in Canada and the United States, and this is just one piece of a much larger picture of how to deal with these powerful tech companies and what they are doing, taking, and sometimes allegedly stealing. We'll be right back.
Hey, grab more delectables. You know, that lickable cat treat.
Delickable delectables.
Yes. Just hurry.
Must be delicious.
Delectables, lickable treat. Deliciously delectable delectables.
Look out, 'cause here I come.
Have you always had trouble with your weight? Sing.
Discover the power of Wegovy.
With Wegovy, I lost 35 pounds. And some lost over 46 pounds.
And I'm keeping the weight off.
I'm reducing my risk. Wegovy is the only weight management medicine proven to reduce risk of major cardiovascular events such as death, heart attack, or stroke in adults with known heart disease and obesity.
Don't use Wegovy with semaglutide or GLP-1 medicines or in children under 12. Don't take if you or your family had MTC, MEN2, or if allergic to it. Tell your prescriber if you are breastfeeding, pregnant, or plan to be. Stop taking and get medical help right away if you get a lump or swelling in your neck, severe stomach pain, or any of these allergic reactions. Serious side effects may include pancreas inflammation and gallbladder problems. Call your prescriber if you have any of these symptoms. Wegovy may cause low blood sugar in people with diabetes, especially if you take medicines to treat diabetes. Call your prescriber about vision changes, if you feel your heart racing while at rest, or if you have mental changes. Depression or thoughts of suicide may occur. Common side effects include nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, constipation, stomach pain, flu or upset, headache, feeling tired, dizzy or bloated, gas, and heartburn. Some side effects lead to dehydration, which may cause kidney problems.
With Wegovy,
I'm losing weight.
I'm keeping it off.
And I'm lowering my CV risk.
Check your coverage before talking to your prescriber about Wegovy.
Everywhere but the seat. The seat is leather.
Alan, we get it. You love your bike. We do too.
That's why we're America's #1 motorcycle insurer.
But do you have to wedge it into everything?
What? I don't do that.
This reminds me of my bike.
The wolf was about the size of my new motorcycle. Have you seen it, by the way? Happy birthday, Grandma!
Really?
Look how the brushstrokes follow the line of the gas tank.
Hey!
Brought my +1. Jamie.
Your best defense against erosion and cavities is strong enamel. Nothing beats it. I recommend Pronamel Active Shield because it actively shields the enamel to defend against erosion and cavities. I think that this product is a game changer for my patients. It really works.
Tonight, Inside with Jen Psaki at 8, The Rachel Maddow Show at 9, and The Last Word with Lawrence O'Donnell at 10 on MSNBC.
New reaction now as the results of the presidential election reverberate.
President-elect Trump's return to the White House has shaken NATO allies.
The Federal Reserve is widely expected to lower interest rates.
Firefighters on both coasts battling dangerous blazes.
From Philadelphia, New Hampshire.
In Israel.
In El Paso.
From MSNBC World Headquarters.
We need a small business loan fast.
I got this.
Loan Falcon!
There's a better way to get a fast small business loan. Go to OnDeck.com, and if approved, get your funds as soon as the same day. Your loan is on deck.
This is my coffee shop. We just moved into a bigger space, brought on another employee, and ordered new branded gear for the team. It was so easy. I just chose my products, added our logo, and placed my order. Bring your own team together with custom gear. Get started today at CustomInc.com.
Say goodbye to scooping this holiday season with Litter Robot, the highest-rated self-cleaning litter box that eliminates the chore of scooping while drastically reducing litter mess and odors, even in a multi-cat household. For a limited time, save up to $100 on Litter Robot bundles.
Guys, reach peak performance through Ro. With access to prescription medications uniquely designed to suit your needs. We got you. Connect with the provider at ro.co/peak.
Thanks for joining us. The Readout with Joy Reid starts now.
Tonight on The Readout.
We are living in unparalleled times of corruption in both our media and government. It is our job to expose the truth, no matter what the cost. My name is Kash Patel, and I have written the first ever children's Russiagate book. It's called The Plot Against the King. It is a fantastical telling by me, the Russiagate chief investigator under then-Chairman Nunes, of how we triumphed to put truth over evil.
Kash Patel, who sees Trump as the king, is said king's pick for FBI director. And there are shocking new revelations about his pick for Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, including from his own mom. Neither man is qualified for those powerful jobs, but they do share blind loyalty to Trump, which is the only prerequisite. Also tonight, the Hunter Biden pardon raises the question, why hasn't President Biden pardoned far more people to cure some of the many injustices in the system? And we begin tonight with what might be the worst pick in the worst cabinet in U.S. history. Continuing his breakneck pace of unqualified yet theatrical cabinet nominations, Donald Trump rolled out perhaps his most bonkers one this weekend. Kash Patel, the conspiracy theorist who even William Barr, the cover-up general, thought was too unhinged to name to a deputy job in the AG's